All right, so picture this. I want you to really imagine this scene. It's a Tuesday morning downtown Dallas. Humid, one of the sticky Texas days.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling.
And we're in one of those super high-tech conference rooms, 42nd floor, glass walls, the whole deal.
Right. Panoramic view of the skyline. You can smell the expensive coffee.
Exactly. And the nervous energy. And on one side of this massive mahogany table, you have a presenter from some hot new startup. They're just so slick, charismatic.
Wearing a suit that costs more than my first car, I bet.
For sure. And they are pitching this AI-powered traffic system. And the slide deck, it's not a presentation, it's a movie.
Oh, it's dazzling, I'm sure. Cinematic.
Absolutely. They've got these simulation videos of drones buzzing over I-35 and all the cars are rerouting just seamlessly. It looks like water flowing around a rock. They're promising, a 30% drop in congestion.
It's a sci-fi movie, basically.
Totally. And sitting right across from them is Elena. She's the city CIO, and she's watching this whole show. And on the surface, she's nodding politely. But inside, her palms are sweating.
Because she knows the stakes are incredibly, incredibly real. This isn't just about cool tech.
Not at all. She knows that if she signs this contract and this thing fails, if one of those drones just drops out of the sky onto a minivan.
Oh, wow.
Or if the AI hallucinates, a road closure that doesn't actually exist, gridlock doesn't just stay bad, it gets catastrophic. And the voters, they don't blame the startup, they come for her.
They come for her job.
Yeah.
It's the classic high-stakes gamble of the public sector. You need innovation, you have to find solutions, but you absolutely cannot afford failure because the currency you lose is public trust.
Exactly. Okay, now cut. Let's go to a totally different scene. A logistics warehouse, maybe on the outskirts of Fort Worth.
Okay, so we're trading the glass tower for concrete floors.
Yep. The sound of forklifts beeping, dust motes dancing in the light. And there's Marcus, the CTO. He's staring at a proposal for a blockchain supply chain platform. And it's promising to revolutionize everything. Total transparency, instant tracking. But Marcus looks haunted.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
He's seen this movie before, too. Just a different genre.
He's remembering a competitor who went all in on a similar game changer maybe 2 years ago. And that competitor, they're bankrupt now. Their implementation just completely failed. Their cash flow dried up, and they folded. So here it is. Here is the billion-dollar question we're facing today. In a world that is just screaming with the next big thing, where your LinkedIn feed is 90% hype, how do you distinguish the actual game changers from the expensive, career-ending mistakes?
And the answer isn't about luck. It's definitely not about who has the flashiest PowerPoint or, the best salesperson. It's about having a system. A systematic filter, a rigorous, almost scientific way to strut away all that hype and look at the nuts and bolts of the thing.
Welcome back to Emerging Technologies. We are diving deep today, coming to you with insights affiliated with Tarleton State University's Dr. Sam Pack College of Business. Our whole goal here is to take this complex world of MIS, cybersecurity, IT, and make it actually usable for your future career.
That's right. Whether you're a student prepping for that first big internship or maybe you're already a manager trying to steer your ship through a digital storm, this is the toolkit you're going to need.
Today, we are doing a massive deep dive into Chapter 11, Technology Assessment and Strategic Decision-Making, from Dr. Joseph H.Schuessler's book, Emerging Technologies and Innovation Strategy, the 2026 edition. This is basically the roadmap for how leaders make those tough calls without, wrecking their organizations.
It's essentially the difference between being a visionary leader and being a cautionary tale in a business school textbook.
So true. Now, before we get into the heavy-hitting frameworks, and we have some really dense, really valuable ones today, I just have a quick favor to ask. If you want to future-proof your career and really stay ahead of the curve, take a second right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to the show, and maybe share this with a classmate or a colleague.
Seriously, do it now. We're sharing insider tips here that, usually cost a lot of tuition money or consulting fees to learn. You really don't want to miss what's coming up next.
And hey, while you're at it, check the description below. We've linked some incredible resources from the chapter that you can use to impress your professors or, frankly, your boss. Okay, so let's unpack this. We started with Elena and Marcus. What is the core problem they're actually trying to solve? It's not just which software do I buy, is it?
No, it's so much deeper than a simple purchasing decision. The real problem is the gap between what's possible and what's practical.
Okay, possible versus practical. Break that down.
So Elena's looking at AI drones.
Yeah.
That technology is possible. We have the physics, we have the code.
Yeah.
But is it practical for a city that has, budget caps, strict privacy laws, and physical infrastructure that maybe hasn't been updated since the 1990s?
Right. The reality on the ground.
And Marcus.
Same thing. Marcus is looking at blockchain. It is technically possible, but is it practical for a warehouse where, let's be honest, half the staff struggles with basic Excel spreadsheets?
Yeah, that's a huge gap.
A huge gap. If you introduce a distributed ledger system to a team that really prefers pen and paper, you aren't innovating. You're just creating chaos. You are effectively throwing a wrench into your own gears.
So the mistake that most people make, and I think I've been guilty of this too, is stopping at the question, is the tech cool?
Right. Or even, does the tech work in a lab? That's just not enough. The chapter introduces these 3 critical pillars, and I want you to think of them as like optical lenses that every strategic leader has to look through. You have to layer them on top of each other. If you miss one, the whole structure is just, it's unstable. Okay, I'm ready. Lay them on us. What are the 3 pillars?
Okay, pillar 1 is technological readiness. This is the hard reality check. Is the technology actually baked, or is it still doughy in the middle?
I love that image. Nobody wants a half-baked drone falling on their car.
Exactly, nobody. Okay, so pillar 2 is organizational fit. This is the internal mirror. Even if the tech is absolutely perfect, can we as an organization actually use it? Or will it just break all of our internal processes? Do we have the people, the skills, the culture?
Okay, readiness and fit. That makes sense. What's the 3rd one?
And pillar 3, and this is often the most ignored but maybe the most dangerous one, is value alignment. This is the should we question. Does it match our soul, our mission, our ethics?
That 3rd one sounds a little bit philosophical, maybe even a bit soft compared to the hard metrics of the others. But I have a feeling you're going to tell me it's where the real danger lies.
It's where the lawsuits happen. It's where the PR disasters happen. It's where you lose your entire customer base because you betrayed the trust they had in you. So yeah, it's philosophical, but it has a very, very hard impact on the bottom line. If you violate your values, you devalue your brand. Simple as that.
Wow. Okay, so we have readiness. Does it work?
Right.
Then fit, can we use it? And finally, alignment, should we use it? This is a great framework. I want to break these down one by one because the chapter goes into some fascinating detail on each. So let's zoom in on pillar 1, technological readiness.
Let's do it.
I think as consumers, or even as students, we have this kind of built-in bias. We assume if a vendor is selling it, or if we read about it on some tech blog, or we see a slick demo, that it works.
Which is a profoundly dangerous assumption to make in a business context. Just because a vendor is selling it doesn't mean it's ready for prime time. It just means they're ready to take your money.
So they're selling the vision, not necessarily the product.
Precisely. They might be selling you a vision, not a finished, polished product. And the chapter brings up a framework that actually started with, believe it or not, rocket scientists to solve this exact problem.
This is the NASA connection, right? I read about this.
Yes, the TRL, or Technology Readiness Levels. This was developed by NASA back in the 70s and 80s because, think about it. You cannot have experimental tech when you're strapping human beings to a rocket.
Right. You can't say, well, the O-ring works 80% of the time in our simulations. It has to be absolute.
It has to be. There's no room for error. So they created this scale to bring some rigor to the idea of readiness.
Okay, so what does this scale look like? Can you walk us through the journey of an idea from concept to reality on this TRL scale?
Absolutely. It's a scale from 1 to 9. TRL1 is the absolute seed of an idea. We're talking basic principles observed in a lab. Maybe a professor wrote a new equation on a whiteboard. It's theoretical. It exists in the mind and on paper, and that's about it.
Got it. So that is definitely not something I'm putting in my city traffic grid.
Definitely not. That is pure, fundamental research. Now, as you move up the scale, say to TRL 3 or 4, you're in the proof of concept phase.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means you're testing individual components in a lab setting. For our drone example, you might have the camera's sensor working on a breadboard on a desk. It proves the component can do its basic function under ideal conditions.
But a lab isn't the real world. A lab doesn't have rain or, angry drivers honking or birds flying into things.
And that is the big jump. That's the critical distinction. TRL 6 is usually considered the breakout moment for a technology. That's when you have a prototype working in a relevant environment.
Okay, let's define relevant environment, because that sounds a little bit like jargon.
It's a great question. It means if you're testing that traffic drone, you aren't just flying it in a wind tunnel. That's a controlled lab environment. A relevant environment means you're flying it over a closed test track, maybe with some fake cars, maybe some artificial wind and rain.
So it's getting closer to reality, but it's still safe. If it crashes, nobody gets hurt.
Precisely. It's the sandbox before you play in the street. And then at the very top, you have TRL-9.
And TRL-9 is?
TRL-9 is mission proven. It's been a space and back.
Yeah.
In our context, for Elena's drones, it means the system has been deployed in a city like Dallas for 6 months. It's handled rush hour, it's handled thunderstorms, it's probably handled a few hackers trying to mess with it, and it hasn't crashed. It is fully 100% operational and reliable.
So if I'm Elena, the city CIO, and this startup is pitching me their amazing AI system, I shouldn't just ask, does it work? I should be asking, what is your TRL?
Precisely. And here is the kicker, and this is what you have to watch out for. Salespeople love to sell TRL-4 technology as if it were TRL-9. They'll show you the fantastic lab results, the TRL-4 proof of concept, but they'll promise you the reliability of a mission-proven TRL-9 system. And if you deploy a TRL-4 technology to manage downtown traffic, and it fails, that's not just a mistake. That's negligence.
So in the public sector or in heavy industry, they'd have a rule about this.
Oh, absolutely. Governments, oil and gas, aviation, they usually have a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
We don't even consider buying anything under a TRL-7 or 8. The risk is just too high.
That makes perfect sense for safety-critical industries.
Yeah.
But what about the private sector? What about the companies that want to be on the bleeding edge? If you wait for TRL-9, aren't you too late? Aren't you just buying what everyone else already has?
That is the strategic trade-off. It's a fantastic question. And that's where the other major framework comes in, the Gartner Hype Cycle. Most business students listening to this will probably see this a lot more often than the NASA TRL charts.
Right.
Because this is less about engineering physics and much more about market psychology.
Oh, I've definitely seen this curve. It looks like a roller coaster. A huge, steep climb, then a terrifying drop, and then a slow, gradual leveling out.
And it feels like one, too, if you're investing in it. It basically maps the emotional journey that the market takes with any new technology. It always starts with the innovation trigger.
Breakthrough.
The breakthrough. A news article comes out saying, quantum computing is here, or ChatGPT is released to the public. Something new and exciting happens.
And then everyone, collectively, loses their minds.
That's the next phase. Exactly. The peak of inflated expectations. The buzz is just, it's deafening. It's so much louder than the actual results. Everyone is talking about it, fearing missing out. FOMO is the primary driver here.
Right, fear of missing out.
The companies just start throwing money at it because they don't want to look like they're falling behind. But, and this is key, usually at this peak, the tech isn't actually robust yet. It's that TRL-4 masquerading as TRL-9.
This sounds exactly like the dot-com bubble, or maybe early crypto, or, the metaverse a couple years ago.
Or early VR, or 3D printing back in 2012. The pattern is always the same. If you buy in at the peak, you are paying a massive premium, both in money and in stress, for something that is almost certainly about to disappoint you.
And that disappointment leads to the big drop.
That leads to the trough of disillusionment. This is where all the failures happen. The pilot programs crash and burn. The media, which was the one that built the tech up in the first place, now starts writing all the "Is AI dead?" articles. The hype just completely dies.
But the technology itself doesn't actually die.
No, and that's the secret. While all the hype dies down, the engineers are still working. They are quietly fixing the bugs, refining the product. And that's when we enter the slope of enlightenment.
Okay, what happens there?
We start to understand what the tech is actually good for, not what the glossy brochure promised. We find its real-world applications. And then finally, after all that turmoil, we hit the plateau of productivity.
Where it just becomes normal. It's boring, like email or Wi-Fi.
Exactly. It just works. So for you listening, the strategic lesson here is all about timing. If you're a risk taker, an innovator, maybe you buy in at the peak, it's high risk. But if you can make it work, it's a huge reward.
But if you're cautious.
If you're like Marcus in our story, who literally cannot afford a failure, you wait. You wait for the slope of enlightenment. You let somebody else make all the expensive, painful mistakes first.
I love that distinction. It's not just, is it good tech? It's, where is it in the emotional life cycle of the market?
Yes, you have to learn to divorce the emotion from the engineering. They are two very different things.
Okay, so Technological Readiness is asking, does the tool actually work? But now we have to move to Pillar 2, which forces us to stop looking at the tech and start looking in the mirror. Organizational fit.
This is the classic square peg, round hole problem. You can go out and buy a TRL-9 fully mature plateau of productivity piece of software. It's perfect. But if your organization is a mess or just not built for it, that perfect software will fail.
The chapter mentions the strategic alignment model, or SAM. It sounds a bit academic, a bit fancy, but break it down for us. Why do we need a model for this? Can't we just sort of guess if it'll fit?
You can guess, but you'll usually be wrong. SAM was developed by Henderson and Venkatraman, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. It basically says you have two worlds in any company. The business world, that's your strategy, your people, your processes, and the IT world, your tech strategy, your infrastructure.
Okay, two worlds.
And these two worlds have to be perfectly aligned. They have to match. If your business strategy goes left and your IT strategy goes right, you literally tear the company apart from the inside.
Can you give us a concrete example of a mismatch like that?
Of course. Let's go back to Marcus's logistics company. Let's say their core business strategy is low-cost leader. They want to be the Walmart of logistics. Always the cheapest option to move boxes from A to B.
Okay, so margins are razor thin, efficiency is king, every single penny counts.
Exactly. And then Marcus gets dazzled and decides to implement that really expensive blockchain tracking system. Now, blockchain, as a technology, is famously computationally expensive. It requires high-end, very expensive talent to manage. We're talking developers who charge $200,000 a year. It might even slow down verification because of the consensus mechanism.
So the technology, which is high cost and high complexity, is actively fighting the business strategy, which is low cost and high efficiency.
You got it. That is a textbook case of poor strategic fit. Even if the blockchain works perfectly from a technical standpoint, it hurts the company's primary goal. It eats into the very margins they are trying to protect. It's a self-inflicted wound.
Wow. What about the people side of this? The chapter talks about infrastructure and skills as part of the fit.
That's the other half of the puzzle. Do we have the bandwidth, the servers, the cloud capacity? Yes, that's important. But more importantly, do we have the culture? If you introduce a complex new AI tool to a workforce that is terrified of being replaced by that very tool, what do you think they're going to do?
They're going to fight it.
They will sabotage it.
Sabotage. That sounds a little strong.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
But it's usually passive sabotage. They won't use it. They'll keep using their secret little Excel spreadsheets that they've had for 10 years. They'll find workarounds. They'll complain that it's too slow or too complicated.
So if you need, say, Python coding skills to run the new dashboard, and your team only knows the basics of Excel, you have a major skills gap.
That's a huge lack of organizational fit. And you have two choices. You either have to invest heavily in training them, which costs a lot of money and time, or you have to buy simpler tech that matches their current skills. You cannot just ignore the reality of your workforce. The organization has an immune system, and it will reject a foreign body if the fit isn't right.
That is a fantastic analogy, the organizational immune response. The text also brings up something called regulatory fit. This feels absolutely huge for anyone listening who wants to go into government or healthcare.
Right. Oh, it's massive. And the gold standard here is the NIST Risk Management Framework, or RMF.
Yeah.
If you are a hospital and you buy a cool new patient app that lets doctors chat with patients, but it doesn't meet HIPAA privacy standards or NIST security controls, it is a complete and total no-go.
It doesn't matter how cool the features are or how much time it saves.
Zero relevance. If it puts patient data at risk, it's not just a bad tool, it's toxic. Regulatory fit is a binary switch. It's pass or it's fail. You can't be mostly compliant.
Okay, this is so clear. So readiness is, does it work? Fit is, can we use it? Now we get to the third pillar, which I have to say I find the most fascinating because it feels the most human. Value alignment. This is the should we question.
This is the ethical compass. And honestly, in the world we live in today, in 2026, this is rapidly becoming the most critical pillar for brand survival.
Why do you think that is? Why now more than, say, 10 or 15 years ago?
Because consumers and employees are more values-driven than they have ever been. And transparency is higher. If you do something shady with customer data, or if your new AI is biased, everyone knows about it instantly on social media. There's nowhere to hide.
And you said value alignment operates on two levels.
Right. First, you have to ask, does this technology align with our internal mission and our identity? Who do we say we are? And second, does it actually deliver value to our stakeholders, our customers, our community without harming them?
The source material uses this phrase I love, the risk of identity loss. That sounds so dramatic.
It is dramatic, but it's very real. Imagine a company whose entire brand is built on customer intimacy. Let's say it's a high-end concierge service. They're famous for having live human agents who really listen to you, who remember your dog's name.
Okay, that's their core selling point. That's why people are willing to pay a premium.
Exactly. Then, to save a few bucks on the balance sheet, they fire all the humans and install a chatbot, even if it's a really, really good chatbot.
They just destroyed their identity.
Instantly. They solved an efficiency problem, but they created a catastrophic identity crisis. They are no longer the customer intimacy company. They are just another generic faceless corporation. That is a complete failure of value alignment. They let the tech dictate the strategy rather than the strategy dictating the tech.
The chapter brings up a really great point about the public sector here, too, with equity and access.
Yes, this is so important. If a city deploys a new smart parking app, where you have to use a smartphone and a credit card to pay for parking, that sounds really efficient on paper. No more coin meters to empty.
Right. Seems like a win.
But what about the elderly resident who doesn't have a smartphone? What about the unbanked resident who can only pay in cash?
You've effectively banned them from parking downtown. You've excluded them from a public service.
Exactly. And if your city's mission is service for all, you have a massive misalignment. You are actively failing a portion of your constituents. That is a failure of value.
So how do you even check for this? It feels so subjective. How do you measure ethics or alignment?
It can be tricky, for sure, but there are tools. The text mentions things like formal ethics boards, doing stakeholder surveys, and using frameworks like the IE Ethically Aligned Design Guidelines. You have to force yourself to ask the hard questions before you sign the contract. Does this creepy new tracking feature align with our stated value of privacy? If the answer is no, you have to have the courage to walk away.
That's powerful. It stops you from just being a trend chaser and forces you to be a real leader.
It prevents innovation for innovation's sake. It keeps you grounded in your mission.
Now, we've talked about these different frameworks sort of separately, but in the real world, different sectors prefer different tools. The chapter sets up a bit of what it calls a framework face-off between two giants, Gartner versus NIST.
I love this part. It's basically the private sector mindset versus the public sector mindset. And they're very, very different animals.
Okay, let's start with the private sector. Let's talk about Gartner.
Gartner is all about the market. Their fundamental question is always, will this give us a competitive edge? They look at ROI, return on investment. They analyze trends. They publish those famous top strategic technology trends reports every year.
Right.
They want to know if you can make money or save money.
Yeah.
It's aggressive. It's about speed and securing an advantage over your competitors.
And on the other side of the ring, we have NIST. That's the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
NIST is the government's chief engineer. Their question is not, will we make money? It is it safe? Is it secure? Is it interoperable? Their entire focus is on do no harm. They love checklists, rigor, implementation tiers. They don't care about being first. They care about being right and being safe.
So if I'm a student listening to this and I want to be a top-tier strategist someday, which one of these should I be using? Gartner's approach or NIST's?
The best strategists use both. That's the synthesis. That's the real insight. You use Gartner to spot the opportunity, to see what's coming down the pipe and get excited about the potential. But then you use NIST principles to ensure that when you bring that exciting new thing into your organization, you don't blow up your infrastructure or violate the law.
So use Gartner to find the race car, but use NIST to check the brakes and the seatbelts.
I love that analogy. It's perfect. You need speed, but you also need control.
But wait, the chapter throws a curveball at us here. There's a new framework emerging that tries to do it all. The DOE's Adoption Readiness Levels, or ARL.
Yes, from the Department of Energy. This is a research spotlight in the chapter, and it's really forward-thinking. They look at the NASA TRL scale and realize that technological readiness just wasn't enough.
What do you mean?
Well, you can have a perfect solar panel. It's a TRL 9. It works, it's efficient, it's reliable. But if nobody buys it, or if local laws ban you from installing it on your roof, it fails in the marketplace.
Okay. So ARL goes beyond just does the tech work.
It moves from technology readiness to something much bigger, ecosystem readiness. It has 4 distinct risk buckets that you have to evaluate and fill.
Okay, let's run through them. This sounds really comprehensive and useful.
It is. So first is the value proposition. Will people actually pay for this? Is it truly better or cheaper than what we have now? Second is market acceptance. Are there powerful competitors blocking the way? Are the industry standards ready for this?
Okay, and third?
Third is resource maturity. Do we have the raw materials and the supply chain to build this at scale?
Can you give me an example of a resource maturity failure?
Sure. Imagine a revolutionary new battery technology that requires a rare earth mineral that's only found in one politically unstable conflict zone in the entire world. Your resource maturity is basically zero. You've no reliable supply chain. It doesn't matter how good the battery is, you can't build it.
Got it. Okay, what's the fourth one? This is the new one, right?
Yeah. This is the unique and brilliant addition. It's called license to operate. And this covers societal and regulatory acceptance. And specifically, it tackles the problem of NBYism.
NMBY, not in my backyard.
Exactly. Nuclear power has a very high TRL. We know it works. But in many, many places, it has a very low license to operate because people are afraid of it. They protest. They don't want a plant built near their house. ARL forces you to quantify that social risk. If you ignore the social license to operate, your project will die in angry town hall meetings before you ever break ground.
That is such a holistic way to look at technology adoption. It's not just engineering, it's sociology, economic, politics, and logistics all wrapped into one framework.
It's the future of assessment. It acknowledges that technology has to live and succeed in society, not just in a vacuum-sealed lab.
Okay, we have hit the theory really hard. I think it's time to ground this in the real world. The chapter gives us two fantastic mini cases from right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. One public, one private. Let's start with the public sector example, Dallas 311.
This is a great story of a city doing it right. So the city of Dallas wanted to implement an AI virtual assistant for their 311 non-emergency line. So we're talking about things like reporting potholes, missed trash pickups, dead animals on the road.
The glamorous side of city government, for sure.
Somebody has to do it. Now let's run the three pillars. First, think about the technological readiness check. They didn't just buy some off-the-shelf AI and turn it on. They piloted it. They had to verify. Can this AI understand the wide variety of accents we have in Dallas? Can it understand the specific way people in Texas speak?
Right, words like fixin' to or feeder road.
Exactly. If the AI crashes when someone says y'all or uses some local slang, it's not ready. That was their readiness check. They needed to make sure the natural language processing was tuned to the region.
Makes sense. Okay, what about organizational fit?
This was huge. On a technical level, they had to integrate it with the existing work order and ticketing software. If the AI takes a report but doesn't actually send it to the guy with the shovel, the whole system is useless.
Of course.
But the bigger piece was the people. They had to train the human call center staff to work with the AI, not see it as a threat.
So the staff didn't lose their jobs, they weren't replaced.
No. And this was the key to success.
Yeah.
The staff was elevated to handle the more complex emotional calls, the crying resident, the complicated zoning issue. The AI handled the high-volume, simple calls like my trash wasn't picked up. It was a smart division of labor.
That's a great way to handle it. Augmentation, not replacement. And finally, value alignment.
This was all about equity. Dallas is an incredibly diverse city. A huge portion of the population speaks Spanish as their first language. If the AI was English only, it would have immediately violated the city's core value of inclusivity. So the system had to be bilingual from day one.
And what else?
And critically, they always offered a human opt-out. You could always press 0 to get a real person.
That's so important. That builds trust. It sends a message. We are using technology to help you, not to create a barrier to ignore you.
Exactly. And the result. Efficiency went way up, call wait times went down, but public complaints didn't spike. They successfully balanced the push for tech with the need for human-centered service.
That's a huge win. Now let's pivot to something a little tastier. Tacos.
My favorite subject. Let's talk about Velvet Taco.
For those listening who don't know, this is a Dallas-based restaurant chain, and they're famous for really creative, sometimes downright weird tacos. Like, they have a chicken and waffle taco.
It's all about experimentation, and so they decided to use generative AI to come up with new taco recipes.
Okay, let's run the assessment on this one. Readiness. Gen AI is pretty good at creating text. It's well past the crazy hype stage for creative text generation. It can combine lists of ingredients in text form very, very easily.
Check. No problem there. Now, organizational fit. This is the really tricky part. Chefs are artists. They're proud. If you walk into a professional kitchen and say, hey, this computer over here is going to tell you what to cook from now on, you are going to have a mutiny on your hands.
Yeah, knives would be thrown. So how do they handle that cultural challenge?
They had a brilliant cultural fit strategy. They framed the AI not as a replacement, but as an assistant, a muse. It would churn out hundreds of ideas. Some were terrible, some were pure genius. The human chefs were the curators, the artists. They trained the chefs to interpret the weird AI ideas and figure out how to make them delicious and edible.
So it augmented the human's creativity, it didn't replace it.
Precisely. It was a starting point for their own innovation. And finally, value alignment. What is Velvet Taco's brand? It's culinary innovation and fun. They are known for being quirky and experimental.
So having an AI-generated taco of the month is actually perfectly on brand for them.
It's a marketing goldmine. Customers love the idea. It reinforced their identity as the cool, experimental, tech-forward taco place. Now, I want you to compare that to a traditional, grandmother's recipe Mexican restaurant.
Oh, wow. If Abuela's Kitchen started advertising AI-generated recipes,
It would be a brand disaster.
yeah,
It would feel completely inauthentic. It would violate their core value alignment of tradition and family heritage.
I love that comparison. It shows so clearly that the exact same technology can be a massive success in one company and a complete disaster in another, based purely on their values and their brand identity.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as good technology in isolation. There is only good fit.
So we've covered the pillars, the frameworks, the case studies. This has been incredible. Now I want to talk directly to the student who's listening to this. You're sitting in your class, or maybe you're driving to your part-time job, and you might be thinking, this is great, but I'm not a CIO yet. I don't make billion-dollar decisions. Why does this matter to you right now?
It matters because this way of thinking is how you become valuable. This
Yeah.
is how you get promoted. Most entry-level employees just do what they're told. Here's a new tool, figure out how to use it.
Right. They're passive users of technology.
But if you can be the person in the meeting who raises their hand and asks the smart, critical question, you get noticed.
You're talking about the mini assessment challenge from the book.
Yes, the next time your boss, or even your professor, suggests a new tool or a new piece of software, run this mental checklist. Don't just nod and say, okay, ask yourself, where is this thing on the hype cycle? Is everyone just excited because it's shiny and new?
And then ask, do we actually have the infrastructure for this? Do our people have the skills? Or is this just going to create more work and frustration for us?
And then ask the brave question. Does this align with who we say we are as a team or as a company? Does it help our mission?
If you can articulate the answers to those questions, you aren't just an intern anymore. You're a strategist. You are speaking the language of leadership.
You become what the book calls a futurist leader. And that's someone who adopts technology wisely, not just quickly. And I'm telling you, that is a rare and valuable skill set in the market today. Everyone can go out and buy tech. Very few people know how to assess it properly.
And that leads to the final recommendation. It's not just a yes or no decision.
Not at all. The outcome of a good technology assessment isn't binary. It's usually one of three things. Adopt, it's ready, it fits, it's aligned. Reject, it's dangerous, it's a bad fit, or it's misaligned with our values. Or the most common and often the most powerful one, delay.
The wait-and-see approach.
Wait until it reaches TRL 8. Wait until our staff is fully trained. Wait until the price drops after the hype dies down. Delaying is a proactive, strategic decision. It's not a passive one. Sometimes the smartest move you can make is to do nothing, for now.
So let's bring it all home. We started this whole deep dive with a really high-stakes choice. Elena with the flashy AI drone demo versus Marcus, the skeptical CTO.
And what we've learned is that the difference between the city official who wastes millions of taxpayer dollars on vaporware and the one who actually solves the traffic problem is the framework. It's the discipline to look past the hype and rigorously assess readiness, fit, and value.
It's about moving from that simple question of, can we do this, to the much more mature questions of, should we do this, and if so, are we ready?
And realizing that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives inside your organization, and it impacts your community. It has real consequences.
This has been a massive download of information. My brain is full. We've gone from NASA labs to the Department of Energy, all the way to Dallas taco shops.
The best kind of intellectual journey, if you ask me.
I want to thank all of you for sticking with us on this deep dive. If you found this valuable, if you feel even a little bit smarter than you did an hour ago, please do us a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe to the show and share this episode with a friend who you think needs a little reality check on their tech addiction.
And please don't forget the description below. We've got links to the TRL definitions, the ARL framework, all the Gartner methodologies. Go build your personal library. This is the stuff that gets you ahead.
This was Chapter 11. Next time, we are taking everything we've learned, all the systems, the strategies, the assessments, and we are turning the camera around. We are looking directly at you.
That's right. We're tackling the final chapter, Chapter 12, Designing a Personal Plan for Technology Leadership. It's all about how you can build your career strategy in this crazy, fast-changing world. You really do not want to miss it.
It's going to be the perfect capstone to our series. But for now, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final question to chew on. We talked a lot about value alignment. We talked about ethics. So ask yourself this. How will you ensure your next tech decision reflects your values, not just the trends?
That's the question that defines a true leader.
That's a wrap on this episode of Emerging Technologies and Innovation Strategy. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, every disruption starts with curiosity. Until next time, stay ahead of the curve.